All was still. No sound broke the silence. Darkness had surrounded me.
Sounds like
In
you
fact,
were outmatched.
I seemed to be enveloped in a heavy mist,
Probably would have
beyond which
killed
my
you
gaze
too.
could not
You're right.
penetrate. Soon in
But
the
it was
distance I
still
discerned a faint glimmer of light,
spineless.
which
I
slowly
felt
approached
like
me,
less
and
than
then,
nothing.
to my wonder and joy,
Afterwards,
I
I
beheld
got
the face
so
of her who
high,
had been my
I
guiding
blacked
star
out
in the early days
completely.
of my earth life.
When I
One of the
finally
saddest
came
sights
to,
witnessed
I
by the
was on
seer
the
at a
floor of
deathbed
the old
is the
state
tortures to
house,
which we often subject
right in
our
front
dying
of the
friends on
closed
account of
John
ignorance of how to care for them
Hancock.
in that condition.
John
We have a
Hancock,
science of birth,
first
obstetricians who have
American
been trained for
hoodlum and
years in their
defender of
profession,
the people.
and have developed a
I
wonderful
might have
skill
still
to assist
been
the little
high,
stranger into this
but
world.
those clothes
We have also
spoke
trained
to me,
nurses attendant upon
told me
mother and
what I
child.
needed to
The
do.
ingenuity of
I
brilliant minds
smashed
is
the
focused
case,
upon the problem
put
of
'em
how to
on,
make maternity easier.
started a
Neither
new
pains nor
life
money are spared
as
in these beneficent efforts for
Hancock.
one who we
After
have never
that, I
seen.
went clean
But
for
when
a
the friend
bit,
of a life
got
died, the
organized,
man who has served his kind well
convinced
and nobly
Cleo
in
to
profession,
loan me some
state, or
hardware,
church,
got a
is to
crew
leave
of
the scene of his
drifters
labors for a
together
new
and
field of
headed out
activity.
into the
When the woman,
ruins,
who has
started
labored to no less good
training.
purpose in bringing
Next
up a
time
family
Vic's
to take
boys
its
went
part
on
in the
their
world's
tear,
work, has to
we'd
leave
be
that
ready
home and
for
family.
'em.
When one whom we have loved all our lives is about to bid us the final farewell, we stand by, utterly at a loss how to help. Perhaps we even do the very things most detrimental to the comfort and welfare of the
A guy
departed
like
one.
that only
Probably there is
understands
no form
one
of
thing:
torture more commonly inflicted
swift
upon
and
the
brutal
dying than that
force.
which is caused by
He
administering
made the right
stimulants.
call.
Such
See, I
potions have
knew
the
you
effect of
had
drawing
your
a
head
departing
on
spirit
straight.
into its body with
So,
a force
the night of, we
incapable
all
to
got
remain and to
loaded.
suffer for some time
Let
longer.
Vic's boys get
Investigators
good
of
and
conditions
hammered.
beyond have heard many
Burst from the
complaints of
windows
such
and
treatment.
rooftops where
When
we'd
it is
been
seen that death
hiding.
must inevitably
They
ensue,
never even
let not
saw
selfish
it
desire to
coming.
keep a departing
We
spirit
didn't
a
have to
little longer
fire a
prompt us to
shot.
inflict such
We
tortures
didn't
upon
have
them.
to.
The death chamber
But we
should be a
sure
place of the
fucking
utmost
did.
quiet, a place
It
of
was a
peace and of prayer,
massacre.
for at that time,
Once we'd
and for
mopped
3
up,
1/2
we
days
strolled
after the
right
last
into
breath,
Vic's
the
quarters
spirit is
in the
passing
state
through a
house,
Gethsemane,
wrapped
and
a
needs
rope
all the
around his
assistance
neck,
that can be
and
given.
threw him
The
off the
value of the life
balcony.
that has just been
And
passed
there I
depends
am,
greatly upon
gun in
conditions which
hand,
then prevail about
draped
the
in
body.
Hancock's
Yes,
studs,
even the conditions of
looking
its
at all
future
the
life are
people
influenced by our
Goodneighbor
attitudes
assembled
during that
below.
time, so that
I
if
had
ever
to
we were our
say
brother's keeper
something.
in life, we
That
are
first
1,000
time I
times
said
more
'em,
so at death.
they
Post-mortem
didn't even feel
examinations,
like my
embalming,
words.
and cremation during
Of
the
the
period
people,
mentioned not only
for
disturb the passing
the
spirit
people,
mentally, but are
was
even
my
productive of a certain
inaugural
amount of pain,
address.
there still
Became
being a slight
Mayor
connection with the
Hancock of
discarded
Goodneighbor
vehicle.
that
If
day.
sanitary laws require
from
us to
then
prevent
on,
decomposition
I
while thus
vowed I'd
keeping the
never
body for
stand
cremation,
by
it
and
may be packed in
watch
ice till the 3 1/2
ever
days have
again.
passed. After that time the spirit will not suffer, no matter what happens to the body. The panorama of a past life, no matter how long we may keep the spirit from passing out. However, at last there will
You
come
could
a
have
time
found a
when no
peaceful
stimulant can
solution.
hold it and the last breath
All those
is drawn.
people didn't have
Then
to
the silver
die.
cord of
Have
which the
to?
Bible speaks,
Nah.
and which holds the higher and the
Sure
lower
as hell
vehicles
deserve
together,
to.
snaps in
I
the
just
heart
hope
and
you
causes
get
the
where I
organ
was
to
coming
stop.
from.
That rupture
I ain't
releases
out
the
to bring
vital
harm
body,
to
and
anyone
it,
that
with
didn't
the
earn
desired
it.
body in mind,
Though I'm getting
floats
the
above the visible
distinct
body for from
idea
1 to 3
you
1/2
got the
days,
same plan.
while the spirit is
Well,
engaged
you
in
probably
reviewing the
heard
past
enough
life,
of me
an
running my
exceedingly
mouth for
important
one
part of its
day.
post-mortem
You wanna get
experience.
moving?
Upon that review depends its whole existence from death to a new birth. The question may arise in the student's mind: how can we review our past life from the cradle to the grave, when we do not even remember what we did a month ago? To form a proper basis for our future life, this record ought to be very accurate, but even the best memory is faulty. When we understand the difference between the conscious and subconscious memory, and the manner in which the latter operates, the difficulty vanishes. This difference, and the manner in which the subconscious memory keeps an accurate record of our life experiences, may be best understood by an illustration, as follows. When we go into a field and view the surrounding landscape, vibrations in the ether carry to us a picture of everything within the range of our vision. It is as sad as it is true, however, that we have eyes and see not, as the Savior said. These vibrations impinge upon the retina of our eyes, even to the very smallest details, but they usually do not penetrate to our consciousness, and therefore are not remembered. Even the most powerful impressions fade in the course of time, so that we cannot call them back at will when they are stored in our conscious memory. When a photographer goes afield with his camera, the results which he obtains are different. The ether vibrations emanating from all things upon which his camera is focused transmit to the sensitive plate an impression of the landscape, true to the minutest detail, and, mark this well, this true and accurate picture is in no wise dependent upon whether the photographer is observant or not. It will remain upon the plate and may be reproduced under proper conditions. Such is the subconscious memory, and it is generated automatically by each of us during every moment of time, independently of our volition, in the following manner. From the first breath which we draw after birth to our last dying gasp, we inspire air which is charged with pictures of our surroundings, and the same ether which carries that picture to the retina of our eye is inhaled into our lungs where it enters the blood. Thus it reaches the heart in due time. In the left ventricle of that organ, near the apex, there is one little atom which is particularly sensitized, and which remains in the body all through life. It differs in this respect from all other atoms which come and go, for it is the particular property of God, and of a certain spirit. This atom may be called the book of the recording angel, for as the blood passes through the heart, cycle after cycle, the pictures of our good and evil acts are inscribed thereon to the minutest detail. This record may be called the subconscious memory. It forms the basis of our future life when reproduced as a panorama just subsequent to death. By removal of the seed atom, which corresponds to the sensitized plate in a camera, the reflecting ether of the vital body serves as a focus, and as the life unrolls slowly, Backwards, from death to birth, the pictures thereof are etched into the desire body, which will be our vehicle during our sojourn in purgatory, and the first heaven where evil is eradicated and good assimilated, so that in a future life the former may serve as conscience to withhold the man from repeating mistakes of the past, and the latter will spur him to greater good. A phenomenon similar to the panorama of life usually takes place where a person is drowning. People who have been resuscitated speak of having seen their whole life in a flash. That is because under such conditions the vital body also leaves the dense body. Of course there is no rupture of the silver cord, or life could not be restored. Unconsciousness follows quickly in drowning, while in the usual post-mortem review the consciousness continues until the vital body collapses in the same manner that it does when we go to sleep. Then consciousness ceases for a while and the panorama is terminated. Therefore also the time occupied by the panorama varies with different persons, according to whether the vital body was strong and healthy, or had become thin and emaciated by protracted illness. The longer the time spent in review, and the more quiet and peaceful the surroundings, the deeper will be the etching which is made in the desire body. As already said, that has a most important and far-reaching effect, for then the sufferings which the spirit will realize in purgatory on account of bad habits and misdeeds will be much keener than if there is only a slight impression, and in a future life the still small voice of conscience will warn much more insistently.
You were just keeping him prisoner to keep yourselves alive.
When conditions are such at the time of death that the spirit is disturbed by outside conditions, as for instance the din and turmoil of a battle, the harrowing conditions of an accident, or the hysterical wailings of relatives, the distraction prevents it from realizing an appropriate depth in the etching of the desire body. Consequently, its post-mortem existence becomes vague and insipid. The spirit does not harvest the fruits of experience, as it should have done had it passed out of the body in peace and under normal conditions. It would therefore lack incentive to build on future life.
You're saying you think Jack's been lying about Lorenzo all this time.
Thus its growth would be retarded in a very marked degree.
Yes,
but the beneficent
Lorenzo
powers
doesn't
in
seem
charge
crazy
of
to
evolution
me,
take certain
although he's
steps to
understandably
compensate for our
pretty pissed
ignorant
off.
treatment of the
Well,
dying and other untoward
goddamn.
circumstances mentioned.
I
What
guess
these
you have
steps
some
are,
explaining
we shall
to do,
discuss when
Jack.
considering the
You
life of
can't
children in
seriously
heaven.
doubt me,
For the present,
Edward.
let it be sufficient to
After
say
all
that in
I've done
God's
for
kingdom
you?
every evil is always transmuted to a greater good, though the process may not be at once apparent. Purgatory. During life the collapse of the vital body at night terminates our view of the world
How
around
did you
us,
get in here?
and causes
You
us
guys
to lose
can't
ourselves in the
actually
unconsciousness of
live here.
sleep.
This is
When the vital
my
body
house.
collapses just subsequent to death, and the panorama of life is terminated, we also lose consciousness for a time which varies according to the individual.
God, you
A darkness seems to
finally
fall upon the
escaped.
spirit,
Jack
then
just
after a
wouldn't
while it
get
wakes
it.
up and begins
You
dimly
and
to
I
receive the
would
light of the
never.
other
You have all
world, but is only gradually
betrayed
accustomed to the altered conditions. It is an experience similar to that which we have when coming out of a darkened room into sunlight, which blinds us by its brilliancy, until the pupils of our eyes have contracted so that they
That
admit a
is
quantity
now
of light bearable to our organism. If under such a
time
condition
is
we
up.
turn momentarily from the bright sunlight and look out into the darkened room, objects then begin to claim to our vision and things outside which are illumined by the powerful rays of the sun. So it is also with the spirit. When it has first been released from the body it perceives sights, scenes, and sounds of the material world which it is just left much more readily when it observes the sights of the world it is entering. Wordsworth in his Ode to Immortality noted a similar condition in the case of newborn children, who are all clairvoyant and much more addicted to the spiritual world than to this present plane of existence. Some lose the spiritual world, others retain it for a number of years, and a few keep it all through life. But as the birth of a child is a death in the spiritual world and it retains the spiritual sight for a time, so also death here is a birth upon the spiritual plane, and the newly dead retain a consciousness of this world for some time subsequent to demise. When one awakes in the desire world after having passed through aforementioned experiences, the general feeling seems to be one of relief from a heavy burden, a feeling perhaps akin to that of a diver encased in a heavy rubber suit, a weighty brass helmet upon his head, leaden soles under his feet, and heavy weights of lead upon his breast and back, confined in his operations on the bottom of the ocean by a short length of air tube, and able to move only clumsily
Well,
and with difficulty.
that's done.
When after the
Thank
day's
you
work
for
such a
yours.
man is hauled to the surface, and divests himself of his heavy garments, and he moves about with the facility we enjoy here,
I
he
didn't
must
do
surely
this for
experience
nothing.
a feeling of
Don't
great
worry.
relief. Something
You'll
like that is
find
felt by
I
the spirit when it has been
always
divested
keep
of the
my
mortal coil,
promises.
and is able to roam all over the globe instead of being confined to the narrow environment which bounded upon
Here
earth.
is your
There is also
reward.
a feeling of relief for
I
those
will
who have been ill.
provide you with a
Sickness, such as we know
lifetime
it, does not exist
supply,
there. Neither
as
is it
needed.
necessary to seek food
But
and
remember,
shelter, for in that world
this
there
is
neither
my
heat nor
gift
cold. Nevertheless,
you.
there are many in the purgatorial
I will
region who
give
go
you
to
another
all the bodies of
vial when you
housekeeping,
need
eating
it,
and
for
drinking
your
just as we do
own
here.
use
George Du
only.
Maurier in his novel,
Do
Peter
not
Ibbotson,
sell it,
gives a very good
or
idea
throw
of this
it
condition
away.
in his life lived
After
between the hero and the
business,
Countess
pleasure.
of Cowes. This novel
Help
also
yourself to a
illustrates
drink, if
splendidly
you
what has
like.
been said of the subconscious
Jack
memory,
seems to have
for George
done
Du
very
Maurier has
well for
somewhere,
himself,
somehow discovered an easy
despite
method which
everything.
anyone may apply to do
As
what
for
he calls
myself,
dream
I
true.
can see
By
that
taking
I
a
have a
certain
lot
position in going
to
to sleep,
learn.
it is possible,
Things
after a
have
little practice,
changed
to
while
compel
I've
the
been locked
appearance in a
away.
dream of any
This
scene
new
in our past
world
life,
seems
which
to
we
be
desire
one
to
of
live over
limitless
again. The book is well
possibilities
worth
for
reading on
people
that
of
account.
our
When a fiery
talents
nebulae
and
has been formed in the sky and commences to revolve,
inclinations.
a little matter in the center where motion is slowest commences to crystallize. When it has reached a certain density it is caught in the swirl, and whirled nearer, and nearer to the outward extremity of what
What
has,
are you
by
talking
that
about?
time,
The
become
world's been
equator of a revolving
destroyed.
globe.
You're looking at
Then it
things
is
the
hurled
wrong
into
way,
space
my
and
friend.
discarded from the
The
economy
old
of the revolving
world's
sun.
luxuries
This
were
process is
paid
not
for
accomplished
by an
automatically as
infinity
scientists
of
would have us
rules and
believe, an assertion which has been
restrictions.
proven
There was
in the
no
Rosicrucian
room for
cosmic
a
conception
truly
and other
creative
places in our
mind to
literature.
flourish.
Herbert Spencer
Now,
rejected the
however,
nebula theory because
there's
it required a
nothing
first
to
cause,
stand
which he
in my
denied,
way.
though unable to form a better hypothesis of the
yours.
formation of solar systems. But it is accomplished through the activity of a great spirit, which we may call God or any other name we choose. As above, so below, says the Hermetic axiom. Man, who is a lesser spirit, also gathers about himself spirit substance, which crystallizes into matter and becomes the visible body, which the spiritual sight reveals as placed inside an aura of finer vehicles. The latter are in constant motion. When the dense body is born as a child, it is extremely soft and flexible. Childhood, youth, maturity, and old age are but so many different stages of crystallization, which goes on until at last a point is reached where the spirit can no longer move the hardened body, and it is thrown out from the spirit
Edward,
as the
got a
planet
minute?
is expelled from the
It's a
sun.
damn shame
That is
things
death
had to
commencement of a
end like
disrobing
this.
process which continues in purgatory. The low evil passions and desires we cultivated during life have
I never
crystallized the
expected you to
desire self
turn on
in such a
Jack like
manner
that.
that also
I've
must be
had my
expelled.
doubts about
Thus
the
spirit
Lorenzo
is purged of
situation
evil under
for
the
a
same law
long
that the sun
time.
is purged of the matter which later
You may
forms
not
the planet.
realize.
If the life has been a
I've been
reasonable
working for
decent
the
one,
Cabot
the
since
process of
before the
purgation will
Great
not be very
War.
strenuous,
I
nor
never
will the
met
evil desires
Lorenzo,
thus
of
expurgated
course.
persist for a long
He
time
was
after
already
having
locked
been
up in
freed, so
Parsons
they
when I
quickly
came on
disintegrate.
board.
If,
So
on the
I've
other
had to
hand,
take
an
Jack's
extremely
word
vile
for
life has
everything
been
the
led,
whole
the
time.
part of the expurgated
I
desire nature
won't
may
lie.
persist even to the
I had a
time
good
when the spirit
situation
returns to a
here,
new birth
and I
for
didn't want
further
to rock the
experience.
boat.
It will
I
then
don't
be
know if
attracted
it
to
was
him
the
and hold
right
him as a
decision or
demon,
not.
inciting him to evil deeds which
But
he
what's
himself
done is
abhors.
done.
The story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is not a mere fanciful idea of Robert Louis Stevenson, but is founded
What are
upon
you gonna
facts
do
well
now?
known to
I
spiritual
don't know.
investigators. Such cases
been
are
a long
extremes,
time
of
since I've
course,
had to
but they
answer
are
that
nevertheless
for myself.
possible, and we unfortunately have laws which convert
Only
such
thing I'm
possibilities
sure
of
of is that
probabilities in the case of
I
a certain
won't stay
class of
here.
so-called criminals. We refer to laws which decree capital punishment as penalty for murder.
didn't
When a
owe
man is
Jack
dangerous,
anything.
he should of course be
You
restrained.
were an employee,
But even apart
nothing
from the
more.
question of the
Well,
moral right of a
I don't
community
know
to take
about
the life
that.
of anyone, which we
But
deny
I've given
society
him
by its
plenty
very
of
act of
loyalty
retaliatory
over the
murder
years
defeats the
without
very
getting
end
much
it would serve.
respect in
If a
return.
vicious murderer
Well,
is restrained under whatever
no
discipline
point
is
in
necessary
hanging
in
around
prison
here any
for a number of
longer.
years until his natural death,
I'm
he will have
done with
forgotten
the
his bitterness
Cabots.
against his victim and against society, and when he stands as a free spirit in the desire world, he may even by prayer have obtained forgiveness and have become a good Christian. He will then go on his way rejoicing, and will in the future like
my
seek to help those
friend.
whom he hurt here.
Good
When
to
society
see you
retaliates
again.
and puts him to a violent
What
death
can
shortly
I
after he has
do
committed the crime,
for you?
he is most likely to feel himself as having been greatly injured, and not without cause. Then such a character will usually seek to get even, as he calls it, going about for a long time inciting others to commit murder and other crimes. Then we had an epidemic of murders in a community, a condition not infrequent. The regicide in Serbia shocked the Western world in 1914 by wiping out an entire royal house in a most shockingly bloody manner, and the Minister of the Interior was one of the chief conspirators. Later he wrote his memoirs, and therein he writes that whenever the conspirators had tried to bring anyone as a recruit, they always succeeded when they burned incense. He did not know why, but simply mentioned it as a curious coincidence. To the mystic investigator the matter is perfectly clear. We have shown the necessity of having a vehicle made of the materials of any world wherein we wish to function. We usually obtain a physical vehicle by going through the womb, or perhaps in a few special cases, from a particularly good materializing medium, but where it is only necessary to work upon the brain and influence someone else to act. We need but a vehicle made of such ether as may be obtained from fumes of many different substances. Each kind attracts different classes of spirits, and there is no doubt that the incense burned at meetings where the conspirators were successful was of a low and sensual order, and attracted spirits who had a grudge against humanity in general, and the king of Serbia in particular. These malcontents were unable to injure the king himself, but used a subtle influence which helped the conspirators in their work. The released murderer who has a grudge against society on account of his execution may enter low gambling saloons where the fumes of liquor and tobacco furnish ample opportunity for working upon the class of people who congregate in such places, and the man whose spiritual sight has been developed is often sadly impressed when he sees the subtle influences to which those who frequent such places are exposed. It is a fact, of course, that a man must be of a low caliber to be influenced by low thoughts, and that it is as impossible to incite a person of benevolent character to do murder unless we put him into a hypnotic sleep, as to make a tuning fork which vibrates to ceasing by striking another attuned to the key of G. The thoughts of both living and dead constantly surround us, and no man ever thought out a high spiritual philosophy under the influence of tobacco fumes or while imbibing alcoholic stimulants. Were capital punishment, newspaper notoriety of criminals, and the manufacture of liquor and tobacco eliminated from society, the gun factories would soon cease to advertise and go out of business along with most of the locksmiths. The police force would decrease, and jails and taxes would be correspondingly minimized. When a person enters purgatory, he is exactly the same person as before he died. He has just the same appetites, likes and dislikes, sympathies and antipathies, as before. There is one important difference, however, namely, that he has no dense body wherewith to gratify his appetites. The drunkard craves drink, in fact, far more than he did in this life. but has no stomach which can contain liquor, and cause the chemical combustion necessary to bring about the state of intoxication in which he delights. He may and does enter saloons where he interpolates his body into the body of the physical drunkard so that he may obtain his desires at second hand, as it were, inciting his victim to drink more and more, yet there is no true satisfaction. He sees the full glass upon the counter, but his spirit hand is unable to lift it. He suffers the tortures of Tantalus until in time he realizes the impossibility of gratifying his base desire. Then he is free to go on, so far as that vice is concerned. He has been purged from that evil without intervention of an angry deity or a conventional devil with hell's flames and pitchfork to administer punishment. But under the immutable law that as we sow, so shall we reap, he has suffered exactly according to his vice. If his craving for drink was of a mild nature, he would scarcely miss the liquor which he cannot there obtain. If his desires were strong and he simply lived for drink, he would suffer veritable tortures of hell without need of actual flames. Thus the pain experienced in eradication of his vice would be exactly commensurate with the energy he had expended upon contracting the habit, as the force wherewith a falling stone strikes the earth is proportionate to the energy expended in hurling it upwards into the air. Yet it is not the aim of God to get even. Love is higher than law, and in his wonderful mercy and solicitude for our welfare, he has opened the way of repentance and reform whereby we may obtain forgiveness of sin, as taught by the Lord of love, the Christ. Not indeed contrary to law, for his laws are immutable, but by application of a higher law, whereby we accomplish here that which would otherwise be delayed until death had forced the day of reckoning. The method is as follows. In our explanation concerning the subconscious memory, we noted that a record of every act, thought, and word is transmitted by air and ether into our lungs, thence to the blood, and finally inscribed upon the tablet of the heart, a certain little seed atom, which is thus the book of the recording angels. It was later explained how this panorama of life is etched into the desire body, and forms the basis of retribution after death. When we have committed a wrong and our conscience accuses us in consequence, and this accusation is productive of sincere repentance accompanied by reform, the picture of that wrong act will gradually fade from the record of our life, so that when we pass out of death it will not stand accusingly against us. We noted that the panorama of life unwinds backwards just after death. Later in the purgatorial life it again passes through the same vision of the man, who then experiences the exact feeling of those whom he has wronged. He seems to lose his or her identity for the time being, and assumes the condition of his one-time victim, and experiences all the mental and physical suffering himself, which he inflicted upon others. Thus he learns to be merciful instead of cruel, and to do right instead of wrong in a future life. But if he awakens to a thorough realization of a wrong previous to his death, then, as said, the feeling of sorrow for his victim and the restitution or redress, which he gives of his own free will makes the suffering after death unnecessary. Hence the sin is forgiven. The Rosicrucian mystery teaching gives a scientific method whereby an aspirant to the higher life may purge himself continually, and thus be able entirely to avoid existence in purgatory. Each night after retiring the pupil reviews his or her life during the day in reverse order. He starts to visualize as clearly as possible the scene which took place just before retiring. He endeavors to view impartially his actions in that scene, examining them to see whether he did right or wrong. If the latter, he endeavors to feel and realize as vividly as possible the wrong. For instance, if he spoke harshly to someone, and upon later consideration finds it was not merited, he will endeavor to feel exactly as the opportunity to apologize for the hasty expression. Then he will call up the next scene in backward succession, which may perhaps be the supper table. In respect of that scene he will examine himself as to whether he ate the meal, sparingly and of foods prepared without suffering to other creatures of God, such as flesh foods that cannot be obtained without taking life. If he finds that he allowed his appetite to run away with him and that he ate gluttonously, he will endeavor to overcome these habits, for to live a clean life we must have a clean body, and no one can live to his highest possibilities while making his stomach a graveyard for the decaying corpses of murdered animals. In this respect there occurs to the writer a little poem by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. I am the voice of the voiceless, through me the dumb shall speak, till a deaf world's ear shall be made to hear the wrongs of the worldless weak. All souls formed the same, that fashioned man and I am my brother's keeper, and I will fight his fight, and speak the word, for beast and bird, till the world shall set things right. Thus the pupil will continue to review each scene in reverse order from night till morning, and to feel really sorry for whatever he has done amiss. He will not neglect to feel glad either when he comes to a scene where he has done well, and the more intensely he can feel, the more thoroughly he will eradicate the record upon the tablet of the heart and sharpen his conscience, so that as time goes on from year to year, he will find less cause for blame, and enhance his soul power enormously. Thus he will grow in a measure impossible by any less systematic method, and there will be no necessity for his stay in purgatory after death. This evening exercise, and another for the morning, if persistently performed day by day, will in time awaken the spiritual vision as they improve life. This matter has, however, been so thoroughly treated in number 11 of the lecture series Spiritual Sight and Insight, that it is unnecessary to dwell upon the matter further in this place. The first heaven, which is located in the higher regions of the desire world, the panorama of life again unrolls and reveals every scene where we aimed to help or benefit others. They were not felt at the time the spirit was in the lower regions, for higher desires cannot express themselves in the cause matter composing the lower regions of the desire world. But when the spirit ascends to the first heaven it reaches, it sees all the good which it expressed in life. It will feel the gratitude poured out by those whom it helped. If it comes to a scene where itself received a favor from others and was grateful, it will experience the gratitude anew. The sum of all these feelings is there amalgamated into the spirit to serve in a future life as incentives to gratitude. Thus the spirit is purged from evil in purgatory and strengthened in good in the first heaven. In one region the extract of sufferings become conscience to deter us from doing wrong. In the other region the quintessence of good is transmuted to benevolence and altruism, which are the basis of all true progress. Moreover, purgatory is far from being a place of punishment. It is perhaps the most beneficent realm in nature, for because of purgation we are born innocent life after life. The tendencies to commit the same evil for which we suffered remain with us, and temptations to commit the same wrongs will be placed in our path until we have consciously overcome the evil here. Temptation is not sin, however, the sin is in yielding. Among the inhabitants of the invisible world there is one class which lives a particularly painful life, sometimes for a great many years, namely, the suicide who tried to play truant from the school of life. Yet it is not an angry god or a malevolent devil who administers punishment, but an immutable law which proportions the sufferings differently to each individual suicide. We learned previously, when considering the world of thought, that each form in this visible world has its archetype there, a vibrating hollow mold which emits a certain harmonious sound. That sound attracts and forms physical into the shape we behold, much in the same manner as when we place a little sand upon a glass plate and rub the edge with a violin bow. The sand is shaped into different geometrical figures, which change as the sound changes. The little atom in the heart is the sample and the center around which the atoms in our body gather. When that is removed at death, the center is lacking, and although the archetype keeps on vibrating until the limit of the life has been reached, as also previously explained, no matter can be drawn into the hollow shape of the archetype. Therefore the suicide feels a dreadful gnawing pain, as if he were hollowed out, a torture which can only be likened to the pangs of hunger. In his case, the intense suffering will continue for exactly as many years as he should have lived in the body. At the expiration of that time, the archetype collapses as it does when death comes naturally. Then the pain of the suicide ceases, and he commences his period of purgation as do those who die a natural death. But the memory of sufferings experienced in consequence of the act of suicide will remain with him in future lives and deter him from a similar mistake. In the first heaven there is a class who have not had any purgatorial existence and who lead a particularly joyous life, the children. Our home may be saddened almost beyond endurance when the little flower is broken and the sunshine it brought has gone. But could we see the beautiful existence which these little ones lead, and did we understand the great benefits which accrue to a child from its limited stay there, our sorrow would be at least ameliorated in a great measure, and the wound upon our heart would heal more quickly. Besides, as nothing else in the world happens without a cause, so there is also a much deeper cause for infant mortality than we are usually aware of, and as we awake to the facts of the case, we shall be able to avoid in future the sorrow incident to loss of our little ones. To understand the case properly we must revert to the experiences of the dying in the death hour. We remember that the panorama of the past life is etched upon the desire body during a period varying from a few hours to 3½ days just subsequent to demise. We recall also that upon the depth of this etching depends the clearness of the picture, and that the more vivid this panorama of life, the more intensely will the spirit suffer in purgatory and feel the joys of heaven. Also, that the greater the suffering purgatory the stronger the conscience in the next life. It was explained how the horrors of death upon the battlefield, in an accident, or other untoward circumstances will prevent the spirit from giving all its attention to the panorama of life, with the result that there would be a light edging in the desire body, followed by a vague and insipid existence in purgatory and the first heaven. It was also stated that hysterical lamentations in the death chamber would produce the same effect. A spirit which had thus escaped suffering proportionate to its misdeeds, and which had not experienced the pleasure commensurate with the good it had done, would not in a future life have as well developed a conscience as it ought to have, nor would it be as benevolent as it ought to be, and therefore the life, terminated under conditions over which the spirit had no control, would be partly wasted. The great leaders of humanity therefore take steps to counteract such a calamity and prevent an injustice. The spirit is brought to birth, caused to die in childhood, re-enters the desire world, and in the first heaven it is taught the lessons of which it was deprived previously. As the first heaven is located in the desire world, which is the realm of light and color, where matter is shaped most readily by thought, the little ones are given wonderful ways that possible construction here. They are taught to play with colors, which work upon their moral character in exactly the manner each child requires. Anyone who is at all sensitive is affected by the color of his clothing and surroundings. Some colors have a depressing effect, while others inspire us with energy, and others again soothe and comfort us. In the desire world the effect of colors is much more intense. They are much more potent factors of good and evil than are here. In this color play, the child imbibes unconsciously the qualities which it did not acquire on account of accident or lamentations of relatives. Often it also falls to the lot of such relatives to care for the child instantly die. Thus they receive just retribution for their wrong as war ceases, and man loves to be more careful. Which now is so important, will decrease. The second, though forbidden evil of a life had been extracted, the spirit discards its desire body and ascends to the second heaven. The desire body then commences to disintegrate as the physical body and the vital body have done, but it is a peculiarity of desire stuff that, once it has been formed and inspired with life, it persists for a considerable time. Even after that life has fled it lives a semi-conscious, independent life. Sometimes it is drawn by magnetic attraction to relatives of the spirit whose clothing it was, and at spiritualistic seances these shells generally impersonate the departed spirit and deceive its relatives. As the panorama of the past life is etched into the shells, they have a memory of incidents in connection with these relatives, which facilitates the deception. But as the intelligence has fled, they are of course unable to give any true counsel, and that accounts for the inane, goody-goody nonsense of which these things deliver themselves. When passing from the first to the second heaven, the spirit experiences the condition known and described previously as the Great Silence, where it stands utterly alone, conscious only of its divinity. When that silence is broken, there floats in upon the spirit celestial harmonies of the world of tone where the second heaven is located. It seems then to lave in an ocean of sound and to experience a joy beyond all description and words, as it nears its heavenly home, for this is the first of the truly spiritual realms from which the spirit has been exiled during its earth life and the subsequent post-mortem existence. In the desire world its work was corrective, but in the world of thought the human spirit becomes one with the nature forces, and its creative activity begins. Under the law of causation we reap exactly what we sow, and it would be wrong to place one's spirit in an environment where there is a scarcity of the necessities of life, where a scorching sun burns the crop and millions die from famine, or where the raging flood sweeps away primitive habitations not built to withstand its ravages, and to bring another spirit to birth in a land of plenty, with fertile soil which yields a maximum of increase with a minimum of labor, where the earth is rich in minerals that may be used in industry to facilitate transportation of products of the soil from one point to another. If we were thus placed without action or acquiescence upon our part, there would be no justice, but as our post-mortem existence in purgatory, and the first heaven is based upon our moral attitude in this life, so our activities in the second heaven are determined by our mental aspirations. They produce our future physical environment, for in the second heaven, the spirit becomes part of the nature forces which work upon the earth and change its climate, flora, fauna. A spirit of an indolent nature, who indulges in daydreams and metaphysical speculations here, is not transformed by death respecting its mental attitude any more than regarding its moral propensities. It will dream away time in heaven, glorying in its sights and sounds. Thus it will neglect to work upon its future task, and return to a barren and arid land. Spirits, on the other hand, whose material aspirations lead them to desire so-called solid comforts of hearth and home, who aim to promote great industries, and whose mind is concerned with trade and commerce, will build in heaven. They will return to on earth the fruits of their labors in the second heaven, as they reap the result of their the third heaven. In the third heaven most people have very little consciousness, for reasons explained in connection with the region of abstract thought, for there the third heaven is located. It is therefore more of a place of waiting where the spirit rests between the time when its labors in the second heaven have been completed and the time when it can self-create the desire for rebirth. But when the spirit bring down their original ideas, so the philanthropist obtains the clearest vision of how to realize his utopian dreams, and the spiritual aspirations of the saintly minded are given renewed impetus. In time the desires of the spirit for further experiences draw it back to rebirth, and the great celestial beings who are known in the Christian religion as recording angels assist the spirit to come to birth in the place best suited to give it the experience necessary further to unfold its powers and possibilities. We have all been here many times and in different families. We have had relations of varying nature with many different people, and usually there are several families among whom we may seek re-embodiment to work out our self-generated destiny and reap what we have sown in former lives. If there are no special reasons why we should take birth in any particular family among certain friends or foes, the spirit is allowed to choose its own place of birth. Thus it may be said that most of us are in our present places by our own prenatal choice. In order to assist us in making the closely recording angel's call, before the spirit's vision a panorama in general outlines of each of the offered years. This panorama will show what part of our past debts we have to pay, and what fruits we may be expected to reap. The spirit is left free to choose between the second year. The past mature victory we cannot escape, as shown by the incident recorded in the Rosicrucian Cosmic Conception, where the writer warned the well-known Los Angeles lecturer that if he left his home upon a certain day, he would be injured by a conveyance, in head, neck, breast, and shoulders. The gentleman believed and intended to heed our warning. Nevertheless, he went to Sierra Madre to lecture upon the fateful day. He was injured by a collision in the places stated and later explained. I thought the 28th was the 29th. When the spirit has made its choice, it descends into the second heaven where it is instructed by the angels and archangels how to build an archetype of the body, which it will later inhabit on earth. Also here we note the operation of the great law of justice which decree that we reap what we sow. If our tastes are coarse and sensual, we shall build an archetype which will express these qualities. If we are refined and of aesthetic taste, we shall build an archetype. But no one can obtain such bodies than himself. Then, as the architect who builds a house in which he spends his lives, will suffer the same one helps in building. But also the spirit which suffers from defects in its body learns in time to build better and better buildings. In the region of concrete thought, the spirit also draws to itself materials for a new life. As a magnet draws iron filings, but leaves other substances alone, so also each spirit draws only the kind of mind stuff which it used in its former life, plus that which it has learned in its present post-mortem state. Then it descends into the characteristics. Later it attracts a certain amount of power that changes the mold of the The dense physical body has had the longest evolution, and as a shoemaker who has worked at his trade for a number of years is more expert than an apprentice, and can make better shoes and quicker, so also the spirit, which has built many physical bodies, produces them quickly, but the vital body is a later acquisition of the human being. Therefore we are not so expert in building the vehicle. Consequently, it takes longer to construct it from the materials not used in making the lining of the archetype, and the vital body is not born until the 7th year. Then the period of rapid growth commences. The desired body is a still later addition of composite mind, and is not brought to birth until the 14th year, when the desired body expresses itself strongly during the so-called action, and mind, which makes man, does not for Lord of Age is recognized as the earliest time he is fitted to exercise a franchise. This knowledge is of the utmost importance to parents, as a proper understanding of the development which should take place in each of the septenary epochs enables the educator to work intelligently with nature, and thus fulfill more thoroughly the trust of a parent than those who are ignorant of the Western mystery teaching. We shall therefore devote the remaining pages to the investigation of this matter, and to the importance of the knowledge of astrology upon the part of the parent, the mystery of light, color, and consciousness. God is light, God is divided, and we are unable to conceive the boundaries of his omnipresence, or the mode of his manifestation. Even the greatest telescopes have failed to reach the boundaries of light, though they reveal to us stars millions of miles from the earth, and we may well ask ourselves, as did the sons before, with the stars moving in our presence, if I ascend into heaven, if I make my bed with blue down, if I have the wings of the morning to dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea. Even there shall thy hand lead me. When, in the dawn of being, God the Father enunciated the word, and the Holy Spirit moved upon the sea of homogeneous virgin matter, primeval darkness was turned to light. That is therefore the prime manifestation of deity, and the study of the principles of light will reveal to the mythic intuition a wonderful source of spiritual inspiration. As it would take us too far afield from our subject, we shall not enter into an elucidation of that theme here, except so far as to give an elementary idea of how divine life energizes the human frame, and stimulates to action. Truly, God is one and undivided. He unfolds within his being all that is, as the white light embraces all colors. But he appears threefold in manifestation, as the white light is refracted in three primary colors, blue, yellow, and red. Wherever we see these colors, they are emblematical of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. These three primary rays of divine life are diffused or radiated through the sun and produce life, consciousness, the seven spirits before the throne. Their names are Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus. Those law proves that Neptune and Pluto belong to our solar system. See simply the scientific astrology by the present writing of the mathematical demonstration. According to their stage of development, have affinity for some of the solar rays. They absorb the colors converse to them, and reflect the remainder upon the other side. This reflected ray bears with it an impact of the nature of the being with which they come in contact. Thus the divine light and light of these planets, either directly from the sun, or reflected from its sister planets. The sun carries upon its silent and visible wings the blended fragrance of a multitude of flowers, so also the subtle influence of the stars and planets towards the communal influence of the real spirit, and therefore we make the meaning of our being. The rays which come directly from the sun to the spiritual illumination, reflected rays from other planets make for added consciousness of their development, and the rays but as each planet can absorb only a certain quantity of one or more colors according to the general state of evolution and thrive upon a certain quantity of the various rays. The remainder do not affect its sensation any more than the blind are conscious of light and color which exists everywhere around it. Therefore, each being is differently affected by the stellar rays, and the science of astrology, a fundamental truth of nature, is of enormous benefit in the attainment of most of the critics and mystic skills we may learn our own strength and weakness, with the past best suited to our development, through dependence on our strength and what traits adorn us. Thus we shall not truly come to discharge our duty as parents, and fostering good faith of neighboring forth, most abundantly the spiritual qualities of the spirit committed to our care. As we have already said, man is the reach of which is a soul. The moon indicates the month when the time we harvest was sown. The child is a mystery to us all. We can note propensities only as they slowly develop into characteristics, but it is usually too late to check when evil habits have been formed and the youth is upon the downward grade. A horoscope cast for the time of birth is scientific and shows the tendencies to good or evil in the child, and if the parent will take the time and trouble necessary to study the science of the stars, he or she may leave the child entrusted to his or her care and inestimable service by fostering tendencies to good and repressing the evil bent of a child's ere it is crystallized into habit. Do not imagine that a superior mathematical knowledge is necessary to erect a horoscope. Many construct a horoscope in such an involved manner, so fearfully and wonderfully made, that it is unreadable to themselves or others, while a simple figure, easily readable, may be constructed by anyone who knows how to add and subtract. This method has been thoroughly elucidated in Simplified Scientific Astrology, which is a complete textbook, though small and inexpensive, and parents who have the welfare of their children thoroughly at heart should endeavor to learn the stellar science for themselves. Even though their ability may not compare with that of a professional astrologer, their intimate knowledge of the child and their deep interest will more than compensate for such lack and enable them to see most deeply into the child's character by means of its horoscope. Education of children. Respecting the birth of the various vocals and the influence which that has upon life, we may say that during the time from birth to the 7th year the lines of growth of the physical body are determined, and as it has been noted that sound is builder both in the great and small, we may well imagine that rhythm must have an enormous influence upon the growing and sensitive little child's organism. The Apostle John in the first chapter of his Gospel expresses this idea mystically in the beautiful words, "In the beginning was the Word, and without it was not anything made that was made. And the Word became flesh." The Word is a rhythmic sound, which issued from the Creator, reverberated through the universe and marshaled countless millions of atoms into the multiplex variety of shapes and forms which we see about us. The mountain, the Mayflower, the mouse, and the man are all embodiments of the great cosmic Word which is still sounding through the universe, and which is still building, and ever building though unheard by our insensitive ears. But though we do not hear that wonderful celestial sound, we may work upon the little child's body by terrestrial music, and though the nursery rhymes are without sense, they are nevertheless bearers of a wonderful rhythm. The more a child is taught to say, sing, and repeat them, to dance and to march to them, the more music is incorporated into a child's daily life, the stronger and healthier will be its body in future years. There are two mottos which apply during this period, one to the child and the other to the parent, example and imitation. No creature under heaven is more imitative than a little child, and its conduct in after years will depend largely upon the example set by its parents during its early life. It is no use to tell the child not to mind. It has no mind wherewith to discriminate, but follows its natural tendency, as water flows down a hill, when it imitates. Therefore it behooves every parent to remember from morning till night that watchful eyes are upon him all the time, waiting but for him to act in order to follow his example. It is of the utmost importance that the child's clothing should be very loose, particularly the clothing of little boys, as chafing garments often product vices, which follow a man through life. If anyone should attempt forcibly to extract a babe from the protecting womb of its mother, the outrage would result in death, because the babe had not yet arrived at a maturity sufficient to endure impacts of the physical world. In the 3 septenary periods which follow birth, the invisible vehicles are still in the womb of Mother Nature. If we teach a child of tender years to meditate or to think, or if we arouse its feelings and emotions, we are in fact opening the protecting womb of nature. The results are equally as disastrous in other respects as a forced premature birth. Child prodigies usually become men less than ordinary intelligence. We should not hinder the child from learning or thinking, but we should not goad them as parents often do with others. A new relation is established between parent and child. This may be expressed by the two words authority and discipleship. In this period, the child is taught certain lessons which takes upon faith in the authority of its teachers, whether at home or at school, and as memory is a faculty of the vital body, it can now memorize what is learned. It is therefore eminently teachable, particularly because it is unbiased by preconceived opinions which prevent most of us from accepting new views. At the end of this second period, from about 12 to 14, the vital body has been so far developed that puberty is reached. At the age of 14 we have the birth of the desired body, which marks the commencement of self-expression. In earlier years the child regards itself more as belonging to a family, and subordinate to the wishes of its parents than after the 14th year. The reason is this: in the throat of the fetus and the young child there is a gland called the thymus gland, which is largest before birth, then gradually diminishes through the years of childhood, and finally disappears at ages which vary according to the characteristics of the child. Anatomists have been puzzled as to the function of this organ, and have not yet come to any settled conclusion, but it has been suggested that before development of the red marrow bones, the child is not able to manufacture its own blood, and that therefore the thymus gland contains an essence, upon which the child has grown during infancy and childhood, till able to manufacture its own blood. That theory is approximately true, and as the family blood flows in the child, it looks upon itself as part of the family and not as an ego. But the moment it commences to manufacture its own blood, the ego asserts itself. It is no longer papa's girl or mama's boy, it has an identity of its own. Then comes the critical point when parents has not yet been born. Nothing holds desire nature in check, and much, very much, depends upon how the child has been taught in earlier years, and what example the parents have set. At this point in life's insertion, the feeling of is stronger than at any other time, and therefore authority should be placed in advice. Parents should practice the utmost tolerance. There's no time in life to feel as much immune as from 14 to 21, when the desire nature is rampant and unchecked. It's time to inflict corporal punishment with any might is never right. Rather, parents should always have compassion for the weak. But there is one feature of corporal punishment which makes it particularly dangerous to apply it to the youth, namely, that it wakens the passional nature which is already being if we live at this, we shall soon break its spirit and transform it into a cringing cur, and it is enjoyable that some parents which is more urgent than any other. It is lack of will. By guiding the wills of our children along such lines.
I do this.
With which unfortunately most of us are afflicted. Correct by withholding favors or withdrawing privileges. At the 21st year, the birth to mind transforms the youth into an adult fully equipped to commence his own in the school of experience. Thus, we have a human spirit around the life cycle from birth to maturity. We have seen how immutable law governs every state, and how it is ever encompassed by the loving care of the great and glorious beings who are the ministers of God. The method which will deal with the Christian mystic initiation. The end. Rosicrucian Mysteries by Max Heindel. I hope you have enjoyed listening along, and that you have learned something new and useful. If you enjoyed listening, then please like this video, and leave a comment if you'd like to tap out this book. If you like more books like the one you just heard, you can subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be the first to know when a new audiobook is available on my channel. Thanks for listening. I hope to see you in the comments.
My name is Jørgen Sejersted, and I am chair of the Holberg Prize. The Holberg Prize is one of the largest international prizes awarded to outstanding scholars within the humanities, sciences, theology, and law. The prize was established by the Norwegian government in 1999 and author Ludvig Holberg. In addition to the academic events that are held each year in celebration of the Holberg Prize laureate, the Holberg Debate is held annually in December in tribute to the intellectual curiosity and energy of Ludvig Holberg. The debate aims to engage prominent academics as well as non-academics in public debate on pressing issues.
Locke's really strong.
Time. The topic of this year's debate is the scientific and philosophical question of consciousness. What is it? Where is it? Discussions of consciousness go back thousands of years and have acquired new urgency with modern scientific and technological advances. The title of this year's debate is the question, does consciousness extend beyond brains? On the panel, we are proud to have Professor Anil Seth of the University of Sussex, Professor Tanja Luhrmann of Stanford University, and author and biologist Rupert Sheldrake. We are also very pleased to have David Malone as moderator of this event. David Malone is an award-winning science documentary filmmaker who has made films for BBC and Channel 4 on topics relevant to this debate. His most recent films have been on the promise and threat of artificial intelligence and on the origin of COVID. In 2012, he wrote a book on the global debt crisis, and he is currently writing a book on the evolution of life and consciousness with a working title of From Matter to Meaning. He also finds time for discussing current issues in the podcast Mental Lab. So we are very happy to welcome you to Bergen, and please, David, the floor is now yours.
What the?
Hear something?
Thank you, Professor Sejersted. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this year's Holberg Debate of 2020. As Professor said, I've spent a lot of time making science, philosophy, and history films for BBC, Channel 4 in the UK, Universal Pictures, and over the years I've made about 10 films relevant to this topic of consciousness. I've also over the years chaired dozens of debates, so I thought I'd take a moment to explain the structure of this debate. There is a formula for how these debates are generally organized. Usually the organizers will invite one speaker to be what we might call the defender of the faith. And their job is to explain to you all the received wisdoms and all of the unquestionable certainties which everyone agrees are true. Then there's the heretic. And that person's job is to tell you that nobody agrees on anything, and that all of the unquestionable certainties are entirely questionable. And then there's often a third, who is a bit like the Social Democrat Centre Party, and their job is to try and agree with this side, and then try to agree with that side, and in the end no one knows what they think, but they're mainly to stop the other two falling out. I'm very happy to tell you that the organisers of this debate, Uli Sandmo and Bjorn Bertelsen, it is entirely their fault, in a stroke of what I have to describe as both bravery and brilliance, have decided to utterly ignore there will be no defender of the faith on stage. Neither will there be the Social Democrat. There will, in fact, only be three of them. Now, it is true that some of them are more critical than others, but they have each in their own way questioned and chipped away at the articles of faith on other people's dogmas of conventional science, this form of fulfillment. But our speakers this evening are not here simply to tell you that. They're here to try and shed light on why. Because all ideas have a consequence. I think people accept or reject an idea based on what they think the collateral damage to the rest of their worldview will be. Because if you accept it, sometimes you find that that idea then forces you to give up another idea you're really not happy about giving up. And if that's the case, then people say, oh no, that's rubbish. If it's not going to do much damage, they say, oh, that's terribly interesting, Professor. And that's what we're here to do, is to explore what are the consequences, what's at stake, if any of the ideas are suitable. Is this a good thing to do, a scientific thing to do? Well, here's the point I want to and see if we can decide which. It is not anti-scientific, the question established for us, but central to science. At the creative heart of science, the creative heart of science is a spirit of open-minded inquiry. Ideally, science is a process, not a position, not a belief system. Innovative science happens when scientists feel free to ask new questions and build new theories, and that is what we're going to do this evening. Asking questions, looking at new, perhaps even heretical ideas, but ideas that matter, which have a consequence beyond themselves, where there are things at stake if any of them turn out to be true. Consequences, how we understand ourselves, how we understand the people we might be able to become from some age. And the simple question, as I said, is to revolve around this question, which on the one hand I'm sure but are you sure the person next to you? How do you know? So let me finish by just introducing our speakers. I will introduce each speaker in turn. They will have approximately 15 minutes to convince you of their heresy. And our first speaker this evening is Anil Seth. He is one of Britain's leading neuroscientists, head of cognitive computation neuroscience at the University of Sussex, which is, I can tell you, a hotbed of heresy. He is the recent winner of the prestigious Faraday Award, and in his book, The Being You, a New Science Fiction, he makes it clear that the human brain is not a computer-made being. Anil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you also to the Holberg Prize Foundation for inviting me here and for putting on this wonderful I first heard how it was going to be organised. I hadn't heard about it before. What a wonderful thing to be part of. I'm very, very happy indeed to be here. It's the first snow of the year in Bergen. Beautiful. Right, 15 minutes to convince you with my heresy. At the beginning, I want to start 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I ceased to exist. I was having a small operation, and my brain was filling with anesthetic. And I remember the sensation of blackness and attachment and falling apart. And then I was back. I was drowsy and disoriented. Now, when you wake up from a deep sleep, you might be confused about the time, but there's always this basic sense of continuity, of some time having passed between then and now. But just out of interest, how many people in the audience have had brain anesthesia and are willing to admit to it? Quite a lot. Okay, for those that haven't, I highly recommend it. It's really interesting non-experience. And I think when you come around from anesthesia, from general anesthesia, it's very different. I could have been under for 5 minutes, 5 hours, or even 16 years. Under is an understatement. It is totally different. Anesthesia is a modern kind of magic. It takes people, turns them into objects, and then back again into people. And when we come around and open our eyes, our brains do much more than merely process information. We are not computers made of matter. Our minds are filled with light and colour, with shade and shape. We experience the world around us and being a self within that world. How does this happen? What makes us more than merely complex biological systems? This is the challenge of understanding consciousness, which, in my view, is one of the most exciting and vibrant frontiers in modern science. I'm very honoured to participate in this year's debates, along with Dr. Sheldrake, Professor Lehrman, and David. And we'll be discussing two questions, I think. One is, Do conscious experiences happen both within and beyond the brain? And also, can science solve this hard problem, the so-called hard problem of consciousness? And in the remainder of my opening remarks, I'm going to talk more about solving the hard problem of consciousness, but I'll say a little bit about whether consciousness extends as well. Let's start with a couple of definitions. What is consciousness? Well, the philosopher Thomas Nagel defines it this way, and it's a good starting point for me. He says, for a conscious organism, there is something it is like to be that organism. It feels like something to be me. It feels like something to be each one of you. Probably feels like something to be a bat, or an ape, or a kangaroo. But it doesn't feel like anything to be a table, or this lectern, or a blade of grass, or a laptop computer, probably. For these things, there's probably no experience going on at all. At least this is a reasonable starting assumption. Now, from the standard perspective of Western science and philosophy, and there are other options, as I'm sure we'll come to, the challenge is to explain how and why this is so. Now, the origins of this challenge go back as far as you like into history, but a useful modern landmark is with the philosopher David Chalmers and his hard problem of consciousness. He puts it like this. It is widely agreed that consciousness arises from a physical basis, but we have no good explanation of why and how it so arises. Why should physical processing give rise to a rich inner life at all? It seems objectively unreasonable that it should, and yet it does. Now, there's an assumption here, not made explicitly in this quote, but taken on by many researchers in the field, including me, that the relevant physical basis and physical processing being referred to are about things happening in brains, and perhaps in bodies too. The question then becomes, what is it about the combined activity of the billions of brain cells and